Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first webinar of 2024, the first best practices webinar. That is, we have a record attendance, not just for 2024, because it is the first one, but it's a record attendance. I think it's going on at least over a year. So there's a lot of interest in today's topic. My name is Rick DeRico. I'm the Director of Public Relations at Transfinder Corporation, and I'm also the moderator of these amazing webinars. And they're amazing really because of you. We've had so many panelists. We've had routers, we've had dispatchers, we've had bus drivers, transportation directors, superintendents, business managers, we've had state leaders, we've had national leaders, we've had everything West Coast, East Coast. Today you're going to see a little bit of that, even into Canada today. We've had contractors. It has been just a great experience to have so many people, so many viewpoints. We learned so much from every one of these webinars, and what's great is that even the panelists have told me how much they've learned from each other. And so I am really looking forward to a great, can everybody hear me first of all? I want to make sure everybody hears me. Can I get a thumbs up or somebody in the questions there so I know that I'm not just talking to myself? Uh, yes, good. All right, Cheryl, you're the first one on. I appreciate it. I have talked to myself before, and I can carry a conversation. You can ask my wife. I don't know if I gave her a word in edgewise those first couple dates. So silence sometimes is not always my friend. I actually it probably is my friend. I just don't visit this friend very often. So anyway, by the way, since I am seeing people answering in the questions area here, I would love to know two things from you, just as I'm getting warmed up here, and is to find out where you're all checking in from, and if you want to throw in what the temperature is, that would be awesome. Um, we are going to be talking, really, we're kicking off the year. Now, I don't know what that magic date is when you need to stop saying Happy New Year. I know today is, the 25th. And so, I know when you turn the calendar over, I mean, when you turn into February, it's probably, you've lost, you're probably better off not saying Happy New Year any longer. But anyway, okay, I'm seeing some temperatures here. Anyway, so I just want to let's set the table a little bit for today's discussion. We're going to be talking to four panelists who are going to talk about what it is that they do at the start of a school year to basically, as a restarting things for the school year. And, one thing that's neat about schools and education is that you get two cracks at that new school year feeling. You get the September or August, depending on where you are in the country, to get that new school year, new sneakers and, sharpened pencils. And then when you get that new year feeling again in January, and sometimes that's a good chance to restart things, maybe to make some changes, um, start thinking about the year ahead. And I mean the year ahead in terms of, next fall opening. So we're going to talk to four panelists who are going to describe a little bit about what they do, how they prepare for the upcoming year, what are some of the things that are on their calendar every year in January, February. These are the things that I got to start doing so that I have a great start to the year. And then we're going to hear about the differences between a small district, large districts, and we have a contractor who's going to talk a little bit about it as well. And then we're going to hear just about how to actually not just set goals, but actually accomplish those goals. And here's where you come in. We would love it if you would ask questions in the panel in that discussion area. So if you have a question, put it in there, and feel free to, I'll try to get to you as soon as I can and ask our panelists about that. But without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. And then as I introduce you, come on camera here. First off, I want to have Cory Lynch. He's in Canada. Cory, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So glad to have you. And you have a unique perspective because of your role as a contractor, Lynch Bus Lines. So I appreciate you joining us today. Mark Dodds with Friends Central School in Pennsylvania. Mark literally was a late addition to the team. Mark Schlosser, who was supposed to be with us today, had significant ice storms happening in Oregon, and 88 power lines were down. And he sent me a very nice note saying, I hope you don't mind, but I got a lot of things I got to do to help deal with some crisis here. And one thing that we know, and I know you guys know more than anybody, is that you have to be flexible and adaptable because things are changing all the time, right? Cory, Mark, do things change on a day-to-day basis? Does anything ever go according to plan every day? Probably
Never.
not.
Never.
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 There you go. So that's the one thing. I had a friend that used to say the only um, the only thing that doesn't how does he say it? Something about inconsistent. The only thing that he's consistent about is inconsistency, I think, or something like that. But the same thing. The only thing that doesn't change is change itself. I don't know. That sounds poetic, but anyway, I'm going to stop that and ask for Jessica to join us. She is with Schalmont Central School District, not too far from Transfinder's headquarters. Jessica, welcome. Nice to see you. And Kevin McGraw from Triad Community Unit School District number 2 in Illinois. Kevin, nice to see you. So as you can see, we're literally coast to coast and reaching into Canada. So we have a nice, well-rounded panel, and we're going to have a great discussion. So I'm going to start off by just asking you all. I'm going to start with you, Cory. We'll just go down the line. Cory, Mark, Jessica, and Kevin. Tell me a little bit about you, first of all, your job title, maybe your career path, if you've been in multiple districts or if you've risen up through the ranks as a bus driver, maybe you went to dispatch or something. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your career and then a little bit about your district. How many routes or how many students transported, rural, urban, suburban, whatever. Just give us a sense of your place. So again, start off with Cory.
Sure. Hi, guys. Cory Lynch. I am a second generation owner. My father started the business back in the mid 80s. So my career path started as about a 10-year-old as a bus washer. And I've done pretty much every job to get to where I am today. I've done the driving, the dispatching, a little bit of mechanical. So yeah, fingers everywhere.
Awesome. That's great. I love it. They made you work. You couldn't just be like, have Lynch in your last name and become you're going to start at the bottom.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
That's great. I love it. All right. Mark.
That's very respectable, Cory. It's very good. My name's Mark Dons. I am the director of transportation at Friends Central School right now. It is a medium-sized private school here in the Philadelphia area, but that's not where I started by any means. I started as a school bus driver in a public school district and was yanking and banking for 17 and a half years. During that time, I became a school bus instructor. Actually, a couple years after I started, I became a school bus instructor and was doing that for a while. Taught at the intermediate unit, all the classes and things there, and wound up becoming an instructor coordinator for the county and for the state, overseeing a lot of different school bus drivers or school bus instructors, that is. Moved up to directing a very medium to large size school district, 5,000 students here in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, just south of Philly. Did that for 3 years and kind of got that molded. Moved on to another district, and the opportunity now came up to go to the private sector. And I'll tell you what, I'm enjoying the move, to be honest with you.
That's
It
awesome.
is a different world. It was a learning curve at first, but having my knowledge from the public school system, as well as all the laws here in Pennsylvania and everything else, it made the transition very nice, and pretty happy with where I'm at. So
That's great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. And thanks for joining us. I didn't finish my story, but basically, Mark had tried to get a link to register for the event. And then Mike had just sent me the note that he couldn't make it because of the ice storm. And I go, well, Mark, I got you. Want to
we've
join
talked
us?
about it before. Yeah, you've
So,
talked about me coming on before, so it was a
yes.
no-brainer. I had the time, and I'm happy to help.
So glad. Thank you.
Yes.
Next up is Jessica, my neighbor.
Thank you for having me. My name is Jessica. I am the Assistant Transportation Supervisor for Schalmont School. We are located in upstate New York, a little bit west of the capital, Albany. We're about 77 square miles. We've got about 1,800 students that we transport. I am responsible for the routing and daily stuff, dispatching and whatnot. I am a Schalmont graduate, and I'm the third generation Schalmont school bus driver. I was a daily driver. Yeah, yeah. I was a daily driver for 16 years, and for the last 6 or 7, I have been in the office with my current company.
So tell me this. Tony is involved. Tony Civitella, the Transfinder's president and CEO. He's involved in an entrepreneurship award. He actually sponsored at his alma mater, Siena College. He truly is like the dream alum because like he's very involved. You're shaking your head, Jessica, because you're in a,
Yeah.
totally. And we had one of the winners of the Entrepreneurship of the Year award was a family-owned business gentleman who said what he learned about passing on the business from the, and Cory, you can jump in on this. This is just a value add, folks. We did not discuss this yesterday, but he said he had, he said it's gone like 4 generations now, his business. Cory, how many you said yours is 3?
2 actually, second generation.
Okay.
My kids work here right now, but they're still younger. They're still in the bus washing phase.
Reeling. So somebody asked him, like, what is the best way to really pass this on from generation to generation? Because you know the numbers of family-owned businesses, once you get past like the second or third generation, it just drops off a cliff significantly. And this gentleman who won this award that Tony sponsors said, don't complain about work at home. He goes, if your kids only hear how terrible things are at the office, you come home and you complain all the time, they're going to hear that. And guess what? When it comes time for them to maybe take it over, no, thank you. So Jessica, I was thinking of you just because you're third generation school bus driver. Did you hear a lot of stories at home over the dinner table?
I've never actually thought about it, but now that I am, I never heard my mom complain about work. I mean, there were some things that she was clearly not happy about, which, we don't do those things anymore, so that's good. But I don't remember her complaining about the kids. I remember her telling fun and good stories. I heard a lot of good stuff about her kids on
That's
her.
great.
And, I don't honestly recall my grandfather ever talking about it either, but he wasn't the chatty kind of fella, so that's to be expected.
Well, I think when you said her kids, that says a lot right there too. I've had bus drivers on as panelists in the past, not just the TDs who once did it, but even just like straight current bus drivers who that's how they talk about their riders is their kids. So
yeah, there's kids I haven't seen in ages, and they're still my kids. They live up the road here, and I'm like, oh, okay, Mr. Pig,
that's awesome.
If that comes out of a driver's mouth, usually that means they're a good driver.
Very good.
Yes, good. It does. Usually it does. Yeah.
So last but not least, Kevin McGraw in Illinois. How you doing, Kevin? Tell us a little bit about your story in your district.
Doing well. I'm the transportation director for Triad School District. So we're in Troy, Illinois, which is about 20 minutes outside of St. Louis, Missouri. So we're kind of we run for 3 small towns. That's where the Triad comes from for the name of the school. We run about 122 square miles, transporting about 4,000 students on 37 routes that run 3-tier in the morning and 2-tier in the afternoon. Yeah, my story, I started in 2007, actually right out of high school. I graduated in 2005. I worked for a trucking outfit for a few years as a mechanic, as a diesel mechanic, and got picked up by Laidlaw back in the day to be a mechanic for them. Ended up taking a promotion as a shop manager for first student, and then took a promotion as a contract manager for North America Central School Bus. And then Triad here is where I graduated from. It's where my wife graduated from. We live here. My parents graduated from here. My grandparents graduated from here. So when it opened up, it just seemed right. I could walk to my office instead of having to commute to St. Louis. So that was always nice. And that's how I ended up here.
I love it. I love it. All right. Well, let's jump right in. I want to just hear a little bit about, when the calendar changes and you go from, December 2023 to January 2024, what do you, is there anything that you do to kind of, review what you've been doing? I don't know if even during the holidays, you review what you've been doing. There's a little bit of a downtime. I just kind of hear a little bit about your approach to starting a new calendar year, not a new school year, but a new calendar year. And I'll start off with Kevin, and then anybody who wants to just jump in and just tell me a little bit about, are there some routines you have that kind of help set the course for the second half of the school year?
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much once Christmas and New Year's happen, we always have a big meeting about making sure you're checking for the sleeping students because we're getting cold now. Everybody has their big heavy jackets on, a black jacket, black floor, hard to see them. We don't have much sunlight. Make sure you're using your flashlights and all that. But really, at this point, we're really focusing already for next school year. We're purchasing buses for next year. That's a 6 to 8 month build time, so we have to get those orders in now. We have kind of a tally of things that we want to change for routes for next year, so we'll start looking at how we want to change those routes for next year. We don't make those changes until summertime, but we start thinking about it now. Just kind of everything at this point is make sure we have drivers for next year, just focusing on the start of next school year to make sure that's going to be functional and smooth.
So Kevin, you are you're gonna have a lot of people angry at you now because you are fully staffed bus driver wise.
We are, yeah. We're fully staffed for the first time since 2019, and we actually are on a hiring freeze at this point for our staffing. So it's great. It's a great blessing, and I hope we can continue that.
So I want to ask two quick questions just because you kind of piqued my curiosity. One is you don't make changes on things unless it's a safety issue like now, but in general, why is that you don't make a change if you do see that you want to make it, but you decide we're gonna wait until the end of the school year to make that change? Why is that?
Well, I'm a firm believer that consistency is key, and consistency equals safety. So we are in a routine. Things are working well. Like I said, as long as it's not a safety issue, it's something that can wait, and we can start the year with that change and kind of have it as a consistency for next year. It's a royal pain to have to reach out to parents, tell them you're changing times. They're in a routine at this point. The students are in a routine. It just unless you absolutely have to, it makes sense to continue with what we already have going on.
Okay. Anybody else? A little bit about the new year, and do you agree with Kevin's thoughts, or do you feel like, nah?
I'll jump in there. I absolutely agree with you, Kevin. I absolutely agree with you 100%. Those changes to routes and things that you see that you can make and anticipate from some of your students moving from one grade to the next, which means they most likely move buildings in certain grades. You can anticipate that and prepare for that. And it makes that summertime a lot easier on you to get that out when you need to the parents in August or the end of August, beginning of September, whenever you start. So here's my biggest tip for that is don't be afraid to create the sandboxes. I already have a sandbox going for my next year, for my 24-25 season. What's that, Jesse?
I think we have 5 of them for different scenarios.
Right.
Things I'm working on, and why not? There it is. It's not going to mess.
Exactly. You keep going through that, and then you're going to nail that down. And as a router, as a former router too, you figure that stuff out, and you go, oh, wait a minute, I can do this, or I can do that. Let me try it. Let me try this. It's not
so a sandbox is what? It's like an area that you can kind of try various scenarios, but you're not messing up your existing plan. And it's still being saved, correct? You're still saving it.
Correct. 1,000,000%. And you still have control over that, whether you can archive it, save it for later as examples. Maybe you have to have board meetings to prove what you're doing, things like that you can pull out of your back pocket and say, look, this is what we've been working on. This is what we're trying to do. And this is maybe what we need to accomplish that. But this is the time to start that, if not before. I created my sandbox, enrolled in November, just to start playing with it. But it's in the background. It's on the side. All my live stuff, Finder, et cetera, is all pointed to the database that's on the go. That, as Kevin pointed out, is so important to keep consistent.
Great. Someone just mentioned, Pam just mentioned a new data source for next year. Is the sandbox different than creating a new data source for the next year?
I would say yes. In my eyes, yes. When you roll that at whenever your business rolls, some go July 1st and they change over their data. The SISs, you can't always get accurate information from pupil services from. I'm sure you all have that problem. There's a lot of different factors that go into that. And whatever you can do to eliminate your confusion ahead of that point is a good thing. Even if you have a sandbox and you want to make that scenario that you worked on, that's great. It's going to work. You can now make that your new live one for the next school year. You don't have to recreate it. It's there.
Super.
Just to
Jessica, how about?
piggyback on that
Go
as
ahead.
well. Back before we were fully staffed, we had to actually eliminate some routes and combine them with other routes in order to make route every day because we didn't have the workforce. The sandbox is where we did that to make sure that it was going to work, it was smooth and all that before we ever even attempted to make it a live change. And it made the process a lot smoother. And we were able to show the drivers, this is possible. It can happen. And it made everything very smooth. So that was a great point.
Excellent. Go ahead.
Sandboxes are great. You can play with whatever you want. You can figure out whatever you want, and it has no effect on your current database and what Snapfinder sees until you tell it to. And you can always import out of one database into another, little bits of information, one route, two routes, a kid here or there. It's really very useful.
Great. Someone else mentioned that they roll forward in their SIS early and usually already have the students promoted, so the next grade up. So I think they always held off on moving mine up to the next grade back when I was in school. That was a joke. So
I got it.
Jessica, tell me a little bit about some of the other things that you do when you start that calendar turns to January.
So like Kevin and Mark, you start looking at next year. What are the things I want to tweak? What are my plans? We just keep a running spreadsheet on things that need to change. I like to reorganize the year. At this point in the year, things have kind of gotten a little loose, a little messy. So you want to kind of bring those back in, look at routes that are maybe coming in a little late and talk with people, say, hey, what's going on here? How can I help you? Just kind of tidy things up in this mid-year so that you're not just flying by the seat of your pants all the time. And then we do, like Kevin said, you do the things you have to do every year. We send out our private and parochial letters this time of year, and I start looking at next year. That's a heavy one. Just look at next year. What are some things that need to change? Whether that's with routes or operations or just the way in which we manage information, now's the time for that.
And if I could cascade on that, Jessica, I have an important tip since I'm in the non-pub world now and was on the other side too. If you don't get those letters out early enough to the non-pub schools, they usually cascade the transportation position on top of many other positions, including teaching positions.
Yes.
So those people that are in charge of it are not there in late June, July, and most of August. They're not going to respond to you. So if you haven't gotten their information before that, you're going to be hurting come August with the surprise.
So for New York State, we're supposed to have that information by April 1st. And it's just kind of
when do you get it, Jessica?
So after 6 or 7 years of doing this, everybody's pretty familiar with Jess from Schalmont, and they know I get a little antsy about it. I improve upon it every year, a little bit at a time, and just kind of try to send those out to those parents. I send one out to the schools. I send one out to the parents. We put it up on the website. Hey, if you're thinking about this, it's time. Get this information in. There's a lot of private and parochial schools who don't do their enrollments by April 1st. So parents, if you're thinking about this, just let me know so I can kind of plan, if you know what's
Yeah, no, that's absolutely how you can back that. That's what I was doing in the past, Jessica. It's a very great point for anybody out there listening.
yeah.
So
Just
Cory, this is all relevant for you because you're helping districts just like these folks.
Yeah, like our new year, if you will, actually starts for me in December, because that's the time when the different school districts or private schools are starting to put their tenders out for contracts that are expiring. So right now I'm going through the motions of making sure I'm all up to date, who's under contract, who's not under contract, and then trying to figure out, which contracts do we want, which ones can we serve, what do we have equipment for? And like Kevin said, a lot of times, you're 6 to 9 months lead time to try and get a vehicle. So, what is that timeline of contract due date? Can you get equipment? Because of course, if you've got a contract that comes out and they say, okay, yes, we would like to have 40 runs. Well, I obviously don't have 40 buses just sitting in the weeds waiting to go. And can you actually make that happen? You're trying to place almost fake orders, if you will, with various suppliers to say, okay, I need to know by this date, can you make this work?
Cory,
So,
now that you're on, I'm just thinking this might be helpful for anybody who is either working with a contractor or is thinking about it. What is there any kind of like wish list you have from districts? Like, I wish they would just do this. This would help me serve them better.
Yeah, for me, it's more notice is always better. We've got some districts that we know they like to bring out their tender, for example, in the 1st of December, and they want to usually have it closed about the 15th. Sorry, about the 15th of January, and that's a pretty decent timeline. But I've got other districts that they'll go to tender on like the 1st of April, and I've tried to tell them, like, 1st of April, you're going with who you're with right now, because nobody can get the equipment in time to do anything about it. So if you're a larger district, like we've got some here that they'll have like 90 school runs, you want to put that out like at least a year in advance, just so somebody else can come in and have a proper competitive bid if that's what you're looking for.
That's great. I got a couple of things I want to make sure we hit on because we did our dry run yesterday and I thought there were some good points. But I want to ask all those who are in attendance, please feel free to add what you do to start off the new calendar year. And also, if you have any specific questions for any of the panelists, or if you have one that's just open to the entire group, that would be great as well. So Kevin, you talked also about there are just certain things that uh, there's deadlines for certain things that drivers have to do, certifications and the like. Give me a sense of what you do to kind of keep that momentum going and not miss any critical deadlines.
Yeah. So in Illinois, all of our drivers have to take an annual physical, drug screening, and DOT requirements. So we always try to give them plenty of notice of that coming up, because we can't trust that necessarily they're going to remember that on their own. A lot of life happens, right? And we don't want anybody to lose their license. So we always, from July to December, we give them all of their notices in July when we come back to school, just letting you know, hey, you got your permits due on this day, right? And then in December, we'll give them for everybody through June, just to make sure that everybody's understanding where they can go get their physical, because it seems to be, at least for us around here, our DOT doctors are changing all the time. They're losing their certificate. They're having to go to another hospital. So we're constantly having to set up a new vendor and then try to get all the drivers to understand they can't go to their old doctor. Now they got to go to this doctor. So it's a constant struggle that we try to stay on top of, but it's important. So we try to give everybody plenty of notice.
That's good. I'm sure that resonates with everybody. Before I go on, Jessica, I wanted to ask you about some of the things you do, like at the you talked about kindergarten and registration. So I want to get there because I think there was a good one. But first, I want to ask the group because I got a little bit of a technical question. There's no name attached to it because I would like to give you a shout out, but I can't. Can you import, going back to the sandbox? I think we hit a nerve with the sandbox. Can you export/import from a sandbox or a new database just as easy from one or another?
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. I got
I do it all
four
the time.
shaking heads.
The import wizard will guide you right through the whole thing, start to finish. You do want to make sure you scroll through. Make sure there's not that little scroll bar that you're looking at everything. Just pay attention to what it's asking you, and it is very, very clear also when you have those sorts of questions. The Transfinder community chat portion is absolutely fantastic. It's top notch, and they are available to answer any question pretty much all of the time. It's very handy.
That's been a huge thing we've been talking a lot about. It was developed several years ago now, and that's the quickest Tony does this tech tip he puts out every summer, like 10 tech tips.
Mhm.
They're like Tony's terrific tech tips, Tony's timely tech tips. We're running out of some T's. If you got anybody has any ideas, put them in the chat. But almost all of them always try to first say if your first point of contact when you're looking for service is the live chat. That doesn't mean you still can't. You need to talk to somebody like over the phone.
Community in general.
Yeah.
Community in general.
Yeah, that's good.
Not that.
Jessica, so I'm gonna let that one go. So Jessica, tell me, you also talked about kindergarten, going in and doing safety instruction and that kind of thing at the kindergarten level, and then also meeting new parents who are going to have kids in kindergarten in the fall. Tell me a little bit about that, because you're starting to do that stuff now too, that planning.
So our kindergarten registration happens, I believe, in March, and the transportation director, our safety advisor, and myself and my counterpart, we go to kindergarten registration so that there are faces for parents to meet. Many of them are new parents. They have questions. We've got about 5 or 10 minutes. We talk a little bit about transportation and what our expectations are. Not a lot of do's or don'ts, because they're typically pretty overwhelmed at that point, especially those new parents. The old ones, the ones who have other students, they're not as overwhelmed. A lot of folks have questions. Are there assigned seats? Can I sit with my sibling? Those sorts of things. So they like to have a face to talk to. We're not just a disembodied voice on the phone. You get to soothe a lot of worries. Hey, I live here. Will the bus come right here? Where is this bus stop? When's it gonna come? When will I get that information? Can I go for a bus ride? Those sorts of things, and you can help alleviate a lot of their stressors just by being there and listening, and that's fantastic. For our K through 4 kids, we go to the buildings. Our safety advisor and one of us each day, we go to the buildings, and we do a little safety video with each class. We just talk about proper crossing techniques, what to do in case of an accident. We have a little video that our safety team made with the emergency exits, so that they can hear in the classroom, hey, what does this sound like? And it's more than just the emergency drills that we do, because those are all, those are big, exciting days, and maybe they don't really remember them. It only takes about a half an hour each class, and it's super helpful. And once you get to the older groups, the 3rd and 4th graders, it's old hat for them. Man, they are on it, and they are excited about it. And I think it helps smooth things out a lot.
I also like what you said yesterday. I asked you if you give a lot of rules to the new kindergarten parents, like don't get on the bus, or we got all this. You go, no, you'd say what you said a lot better than I could say it. Tell me.
It's overwhelming for them. They're very nervous, and it's not really the time for that. You don't want to tell people, you don't want to in front of this group, don't get on the bus, don't do this. People don't respond well to that. So if it comes up, as a driver, I know I've had to do it. I know other drivers of ours have had to do it. When it comes up, if it comes up, you have a parent try to board the bus for whatever reason, your hand just goes out. Your hand goes out, and you're resting your hand on that other seat, and you talk to them. You're polite about it. We can't do that. I'm very sorry. you know, that very calm and soothing voice.
That's
And,
right.
you know, lots of times parents, they just want to make sure things are okay. But, you know, on occasion, you get some other ones who don't, those aren't their interests.
That's
But,
good. That's good.
One
you
of the
know,
things that we do for some of our customers that have the kindergartens coming in, it's inevitable that usually in May, sometimes early June, they'll have an open house for all the new kindergarten, and the kids will come in with mom and dad and all that. So we have a bus go out there as part of that open house day, where we'll take the kids with the parents, get on the bus, see what you're getting into, go for a little drive around the block, 5 minutes. These are the rules, all the rest of it, and you drop them off, and you just, depending on how many kids, sometimes you'll do 10 laps around the block.
That's great. I love it. Do you have them go out to the back too as part of like the security thing? You know, how this is how you do an exit or not? You don't do that for that type
Not
of.
at that point in time, no.
Okay.
It's more about, it's not even so much for the children at that stage, it's for mom and dad. Because like you say, you know, they're overwhelmed, you know, the kids are new to school, you know, some of them it's the firstborn child, they don't know what's getting on. So it's more about alleviating mom and dad's fear more than it actually is for the kids.
That's good. That's good.
And I have to
Mark,
give
you're gonna
both
say
of you absolute super kudos, because as an instructor coordinator, I talk to all the directors in the counties that I oversee. And you guys exactly are, especially you, Jessica, are exactly implementing what we preach and exactly what you have to do to get control of behavior if that's your issue on the buses. Not to only do that, but to calm down the parents. I implemented both of these strategies and kept track of the data at the one main district I was with for 17 and a half years. And it makes a difference. Hands down, the numbers don't lie. It makes a huge difference in the level of phone calls you get from crazy parents and and the comfort level just of everybody that you're dealing with. And those kids seeing that bus up close for the first time, those kindergartners, you should see the looks on their faces, because I used to teach that class to them. And their eyeballs just go, oh my God, because the tire is bigger than they are.
yeah.
And little things like that. And then how do you get on and sit down and we'll ride around the block? This is what it feels like, Cory. Perfect suggestions for anybody.
We
That's
also
awesome.
offer for the folks who are super nervous or the special needs kids who have an auditory issue. You know, in the summertime, once things get moving along, why don't you come on over? We'll go out into the yard when it's quiet. You know, mom, dad, whomever, student, one of us will go with you. We'll get on the bus. We'll talk about all of the noises that you're going to hear. You know, I turn the windshield wipers on for them so they can hear what it sounds like when the wipers are dry, right? You get that chattery noise, you know. This is what the air brake sounds like. Let's go for a little ride around the yard and just let them ask 1,500 questions, because if you can soothe that for that student, the whole rest of the summer is going to be so much better for those parents and for the student. And when they get to that bus stop, the bus is going to come, you're going to pull your brake, it's going to go shh, and they're not afraid. And that is, you know, those parents, those kids, they can start that first day of school off just getting on the bus like everybody else. And it really, you can just see the stress leave the parent's face, and that's worth so much.
It's so great because it's like you just as you were talking, it made me think about things that maybe we take for granted, right? Like, you know, even like a doctor's office. It's like you may be used to being in a doctor's office because you're a doctor, but guess what? I'm not used to being in a doctor's office. I'm not in there very often. In school, you know, that bus sound when you made that sound about that, all that, that could be scary. I guess I never really thought about it, but you know, a bus driver is totally used to it. But for that first time kid getting on the bus, like you said, it's such a big vehicle. It could be, so that's really great. Just kind of trying to see things through the eyes of the parent, that new parent, and the eyes of a kid. I love that. That's really good. I made kind of a joke. So somebody asked a question in the chat, and I said, I'm not going to touch that, but I'll touch it. It said, should we be scared of 4.0, the 4.0, the Route Finder Plus 4.0 rollout this weekend? And the answer is absolutely not. So just want to say thank you, Mark, nodding your head, but no, not at all.
Yeah, I did have a slight issue. I'm going to be honest. I did have a slight issue because we use the one-touch Google sign-in, and there was something awry. I alerted on Monday. The team jumped right on it, fixed the problem. I had access come Tuesday morning. It was not an issue at all. The support team at Transfinder has always been fantastic with any little nuances that come up like that. Not a problem at all.
That's awesome.
I actually, and I'm just going to tell you, I have a support session scheduled this afternoon because I was going through the on-time reporting, the new on-time reporting for schools. If you've had a look at it yet, I'm really interested in that feature, and I was looking through it and have some questions. So I scheduled a support session. It's this afternoon at 2:30, and
There you
I'm
go.
looking forward to seeing what it can do.
It's going to be awesome. Kevin, I want to go back to you because you said something yesterday that hit a nerve, a good nerve, I think, but it was another thing you do this time of year. You talked about spring field trips as
Yeah.
being a crazy time, and Mark's
Yes.
raising or shaking his head as well, and I know Jessica felt that way.
I just had a meeting with my boss this morning about how much it's going to cost. I kid you not. I kid you
Well,
not.
maybe you can learn something from Kevin here. Kevin, give us some insights here. What you do to help get ready for the crazy spring field trips, and
It's all
paint
about
that picture for us, because you did a great job painting the picture for us of what it looks like actually.
Yeah, it's chaos. That's basically what it is. It's chaos. Everybody wants to leave the school at 2:30, even though they don't have their game until 7 o'clock at night. They just want to go. I don't know why, but it's not my job to question why. It's my job to make it happen. So we have to make sure we have enough drivers, and we have to get with our shop and make sure that our buses are up to par, because we cannot have them breaking down on the side of the road. Nobody likes seeing a big yellow bus being pulled by a tow truck, especially whenever you have a football team that's now late to a game. So you gotta get out there, and right now is the time to do that. Right now we go out, we make sure we have no check engine lights, we have no issues. We're hitting our PMs real hard, making sure that if there is anything that's coming, we are fixing it now, so that the equipment is ready. Luckily, as we already discussed, we're good with drivers this point in the year, but normally that would be something we'd be doing. We would be recruiting heavily. We get out there with the banners on the buses. We're out there. We're on the news stations. We're putting things in newspapers. If there's any parades or anything like that for any reason, we always make sure that we put one of our big electric buses with the banner on the side. Gets a lot of attention. You got to make sure you got enough numbers, whether it's equipment or people. You have to have enough, because the trips are going to be there. We know they're coming. It shouldn't be a surprise. It's at least for our district. I mean, we'll have 7 or 8 buses going out at 2 o'clock every single day.
The relationships that we have, I don't know if you guys do or not, but we have a really great relationship with our athletic director. And it is a matter of, okay, can this one leave 15 minutes later?
Yeah.
Like you said, you're doing it on the fly every day. You get it covered every day. We've never had to say no. But can this one leave a little 15 minutes earlier? Can this one leave 15 minutes later? You need to have a good and clear communication line with your athletic director, with your coaches, whomever does that stuff for your department. And it's priceless.
And one thing that has really saved us in the past is we opened up getting our coaches CDL'd. If a coach was interested in getting a CDL and a school bus endorsement, we would put them through the process. They get a little stipend on their check, and they would take their own team. They're already going, so why not drive the vehicle? And
right.
I tried that. I got laughed at. I got laughed at. I tried that.
Why?
Those coaches don't want to drive. Actually, I'm more fortunate now at the private school. My coaches do drive. We have a small fleet of vans, so that does help cut down on the cost of contracting buses for the larger teams. So the smaller teams that can fit in a van or two, a 10-passenger van or two, we send in those. And those coaches have been cleared to drive those vans. But if I asked a coach to get a CDL, I tried that at the public school district. I literally got laughed at.
Really? Yeah. We don't have a whole lot of them. We have about a half a dozen that do it. And some of them are even like retired coaches that are just coming back because they still want to be part of it, but they don't really want to coach anymore.
Good way for them to make an extra buck.
Half dozen.
Absolutely, that's it. Now Cory's like, but if you want to get more contractors, that's fine, because we can help you still. Right? Cory's like, I'm not liking the way this conversation's going here.
Well, we contract buses where we do a wet lease to private schools. And what we found over the last number of years is they're trying to get away from that idea of having the teacher or the coach drive the bus. And from their side of things, they're always talking about, well, it's about ratio and being able to watch the road while also being able to supervise the children. I'm like, yeah, that's what a bus driver does every day.
That's the job, yeah.
That's great. I love it. So I want to change gears a little bit, or still staying in this vein, but just this idea of people have like New Year's resolutions, and I guess there's like a statistic about how many actually stay intact within the first 3 weeks of the new year. But just setting goals. How do you set goals? How do you keep those goals progressing so that you actually, because you guys are all like seasoned, experts in this now. So what works for you, what maybe doesn't. And I always want to open it up to the attendees as well. So feel free to put that in the comment section there. But how do you set goals? Do you have long-term goals, medium range goals, like the rest of the year, 1, maybe 2 or 3 years out, and long-term goals? So how do you set them? How do you keep them on track? How do you meet them? Make sure that you're meeting them or make adjustments to them. I'm just going to open it up.
So I hadn't thought about it like this until you and I spoke a couple months ago. That my goals, right? Like it's surviving, right? Like most of us are like, okay, right? These same things happen year after year. This is what we do, and like you make your changes, you make your tweaks here or there, and maybe you have like a long term. Hey, yeah, I really want to do this, right? I don't really set goals like that, but after talking with you about it, it's like, okay, well, no, I should set goals like that. There are some long-term things, like in the next 10 years, I want to make sure that I've done X, Y, and Z. And without a clear and concise spreadsheet on that, I'm a big fan of spreadsheets. I'm not going to get there, it's not going to happen magically. So let's put that on, let's get that on my main spreadsheet that I keep forever. It's an interesting way to look at it for our department, because we don't really look at things that way. We've got a big whiteboard that's like the project planning board, but that's really for the summertime. Okay, we're preparing for the fall. These goals need to be met. I never thought of them as goals, though. It was really just a to-do list with checkboxes. But you're right, they are goals, and better organization is probably the key there.
Jessica, are you a district-owned fleet, or are you contracted out?
District owned.
District-owned, okay. So, I mean, some of your long-term goals could include, obviously your bus rotation. I'm sure, Kevin, you mentioned about your bus rotation and all that. So things like that,
That's just yearly. There's so many things that we just do every year. I make the routes. This is how many miles you're going. All of the routing issues have been solved. Okay, so this bus has too many miles on it from last year, so we're going to put it over here on this shorter route. That's just part of fall time stuff for us. And I didn't think about it like goal setting, but it absolutely is. And when you look at it like that, you can maybe come at it more efficiently.
Very good. Anybody else? Kevin, how
Yeah,
about you?
I think we all have goals. We all have where we want to see our fleet, where we want to see our workforce. And I think sometimes you can easily get distracted by the day-to-day changes that are happening, and it can be discouraging. But you got to stay organized. I think organization is the biggest thing. Staying organized, staying focused, and realizing that maybe not every day you're going to make a giant leap towards that goal, but you have to at least take a step towards that goal every day. You have to continue to try, and you have to continue to move forward. And I think a lot of it is, as one person, you can't do the whole thing yourself. You got to get your whole team buy-in on it. You got to have everybody moving that ball forward in order for it to work. And we try to have a lot of open communication with our team. We try to be very transparent with our team, explain why we're asking them to do things. Even as far as my full-time staffers, we share the budget with them, show them where their piece of the budget is, where they're falling on it, what they can do to get to where we need them to get to, and why obviously we're asking them to do that. and it helps everybody to be empowered. It helps everybody to feel accomplished for the end result and the end goal, and to share that piece of the pie with everybody.
Very good. Cory or Mark, want to add anything?
I find the biggest thing is just having communication with everyone who needs to be a part of that project or a part of attaining that goal. Like as a contractor, of course, not hard to imagine we're very profit focused, if you will. So it's right from the ownership all the way down to the drivers, the bus washers, everyone else. Anywhere that you can, engage people, get some ideas, make them feel included in the process of whatever that goal is. Because anytime you can find an efficiency, whether it's a financial efficiency, a routing efficiency, something, that's something for everybody else that you can pass on, whether it's a financial bonus that they happen to get or just making the company better than what it was yesterday.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, Cory,
Mark,
you said the word inclusion, making them feel included. And one of the things that I'll just throw this tip out there for everybody that I always like to do was have small committees, like a safety committee and maybe an operations committee. And it would be made up of drivers, aides, whatever, dynamic you want in those groups from your staff. And the idea would be to meet, hey, once a month, once every other month, whatever it is, just to say, hey, you guys have ideas. And can you be that liaison? Go to your peers that you talk to every day at length, on breaks, in between routes, whatever, and bring ideas. What do you guys see that needs changed or tweaked or maybe would improve our operation? And that really gives that staff a voice. And when that happens, they feel, bingo, included. And
that's great.
Progress is made.
So a couple of things. One is I want to, Mark, you're not alone in the coaches thing. I got some comments in here. One person did say the coaches have no interest in driving, but he did add, this is Christopher, we have one that does. So, but like Kevin said rightfully as well, hey, even one is one. I think is how you would rephrase that. 6 is 6, but 1 is 1. But I'll take whatever you get can assist. But so you never stop trying. I want to bring up one thing, and then I'm going to try to launch a poll. This is definitely outside of my comfort zone. But Jessica, tell us about the floater idea, because I thought that was a neat idea too.
So our school district has allowed us to create what's called a floater position. And those are, an AM and a PM route, if you will. You're going to come in every morning at this time. You're going to come in every afternoon at this time. And then you're going to go out as a driver and be a substitute. The benefit here is your hours and your health insurance, your retirement. These things are set in place for you. If you're working outside of those hours, you'll timesheet that. You're going to get paid for the extra that you work, but here is your minimum. This allows us to have substitutes, which everybody needs, because the days of everybody wants to be a school bus driver are apparently over, I guess. I don't know why. It's a fantastic job. But now you have your retirement, you have your health insurance, you have some guaranteed income. You know what you're going to be doing. Maybe not necessarily where you're going, but you're going to drive today. So come on in. That's on top of our traditional substitute list. Our retirees who only want to work in the morning or you only want to work in the afternoons. And our district has said, you guys go ahead and get as many in here as you want. Right now, we're only using a contractor for a couple of routes, which is way better than we've been in many, many years. But it's still, spring sports are coming and it's gonna get tight. It was a little hairy this afternoon, but you work some magic, you figure it out like you do every day. But those floater positions, we have 6 of them right now, and they are tremendous. It's
a great concept. I think you're the only one, and I've interviewed a lot of people.
I had it at my school district. I had 12 of them every day, AM and PM, 12 to be able to cover. We had 5,000 students to 120 schools on 87 buses. If I had one little piece that didn't work, it collapsed. So we needed that much backup for that size of a fleet. To make it guaranteed.
Needs help selling that to their superintendents, just reach out. Well, any of us will help you with it. because it
Okay.
needs.
I have a whole presentation on it.
No, it's great. Well, sure. I think that's great. I love it.
Yeah, we added
Even
that
though
about 3 years ago, and it has been a life changer. It has been a life changer.
that is great.
It's a lot easier to find people to come in and work when they know they're coming in every day.
That's it. Coming into work every day, you got this guarantee, that guarantee. The only catch is you just got to do what I tell you to do today.
Absolutely. Yep.
Hey, that's true for all of us, isn't it? So I'm going to launch this poll, and while you guys got to tell me if you see it, and then I'm going to have you guys just talk over it. The question I'm going to ask you is basically you don't need to answer you guys can't vote on this, so you don't need to multitask here. I know you guys are expert multitaskers. First of all, does everybody see the poll?
I do.
We
Okay.
see it. We
So
see it.
so just asking about people's attendees, their view of 2024. I'm seeing the votes come in already. Are you optimistic, very optimistic, somewhat neutral, somewhat pessimistic, and very pessimistic? And if you want to, in the questions, tell us why you voted that way. That would be great. But I'm just going to throw it out to all of you. What just your expectations for 2024? I'll start with Cory since.
Sure. I'm very optimistic. We've been working on a couple different things, whether it's getting our grants approved for having our electric fleet come in. We've got 26 on order, so that's rolling along, as well as a few of the other smaller projects, and just bring the technical level of the company up, whether it's staff, drivers, and trying to incorporate some of the families on that, whether it's using Stopfinder as an example, or getting some of our contracts from the school side of things using the software more like Viewfinder, so that way they don't have to ask and call so many questions all the time. They can look up the information.
Very good. How about before we go to the others, I want to do that, but again, this is my first time running this whole thing, so I'm just going to share the results. Do you see the results?
Yes, you guys are
So-
great. That's fantastic.
So 44% are very optimistic, 36 are somewhat optimistic. So that's the bulk. We got some neutrals, and that's okay, by the way. Some are somewhat pessimistic. 9%, 4% are very pessimistic. Okay, you guys back to seeing my slide with your, okay, wow. My first poll.
Good
This is a
job.
little bit of an
Good for you.
accomplishment.
Good
for me.
job.
Thank you very much. I feel great. So, Cory, thank you for your thoughts. I'm going to go to Mark. Tell me a little bit quick. We are coming close to the end, so you guys can also incorporate your takeaways. So, thoughts for 2024, but also one takeaway that you want folks to, if they were going to go back to their office or go talk to their superintendent, one takeaway. So, thoughts on 2024 in a big picture and a takeaway. Mark, I'll go to you, and then
I'm
Kevin.
really optimistic. I'm really optimistic about it, to be honest with you. I came in January, a year ago, to this position, had time to eval, make some recommendations over the summer, brought in Transfinder, built the routes, etc. It's going great, everything. I'm really anticipating a much smoother start to the school year next year than this past because of implementing all the new technology. It's always a challenge. Takeaway from today, guys, be prepared, start early. Start before January. Be prepared.
We can't do that now, Mark. I mean, we're in January. Oh, for next year.
Next year.
Never too
Start
soon.
planning now.
Start planning now. How about you, Kevin?
Yeah, no, I'm very optimistic. I think everything's going well. This year is the year that the last few years, all the planning we've been doing, everything's kind of coming together this year. So it's very productive. It feels really good to see everything implementing and working out how we had hoped. The takeaway for today is don't be afraid of a plan. Make your plans and don't be afraid to just move a little bit every day. You don't have to change the world overnight.
Very good. I like that as well. Jessica, before you give me your takeaway, somebody wanted to know how many routes you have daily.
40 some odd, I'd say.
Okay, because they said they have a similar, and they have one permanent sub. And then somebody else mentioned we have daily standby drivers that are at the ready to help cover callouts, emergencies, athletics. They have casual drivers that work here and there. And then the other question was, are your substitutes on call only for anybody?
My substitutes are on call, but not necessarily on call only.
Okay.
We usually know pretty far in advance about how, at least the day before, what we're going to need, and we don't wait till the morning to call them. Nobody likes that 5:30 call in the morning. You know you're going to need them. Call them tonight. Why not? Call them on your way home. Call them at 5. Interrupt their dinner instead of interrupting their morning sleeping.
That's good. That's a good idea. And give me your thoughts on 2024 and a takeaway.
I'm very, very optimistic. I mean, I'm naturally an optimistic person anyway, but I'm very optimistic. It's been a great school year so far, and I only see it getting better. My takeaway is organize yourself. Whatever works for you, you should do that. If you need help organizing yourself, ask for help. You don't have to ask for help from the right person, just someone, because everybody's got a little tip for you. Implement what works for you and run with it, and just keep running.
That's great.
Change direction when you need to, and don't be afraid.
Excellent.
See, I kind of modeled that a little bit. Like I tried something new today. Like I was stressing last night and this morning. You guys, you got to just. I got a question from somebody. I'm just going to throw it out there because it's a shameless plug, but she's asking it, so I'm going to ask. It says, "New girl to transportation question: is the annual client summit? This is Transfinder's event. That's in April 28th to May 1st. Event helpful for newbies. Have any of you guys gone as newbies?
I have. It was great.
Okay, so I would say yes too. Of course, I'm biased. So I would say go to transfinder.com. You'll see it on the very first panel, all the details you need to know about that. Okay, I got to move on to the final.
I'm going.
You're going.
I'm going.
Oh, good. Awesome.
It's the first time Schalmont's ever set anybody, and they do have a new user track. So I would say if you are a hands-on learner, go.
Very good. Very good. And this is not a paid endorsement. Now that we didn't pay these people anything. So okay. So last couple things I want to say is if you have a story, we're always looking for stories, whether you're a Transfinder client or not. We call this the best practices webinar because we cultivate, we want to get as many ideas of what's working as are out there. And that can be from a client or a non-client, because everybody has tricks that work for them. And that's what this whole event is all about, really, is about learning from each other. I mean, can I ask the panelists, just shake your heads? Did you learn something today, even from your panelists? So please send that to mystory@transfinder.com. And then lastly, the next webinar, believe it or not, this is a leap year. And we decided let's hold our next webinar on leap day. So if you have a birthday, maybe we'll even sing to you on that day because you're that much younger than everybody else. Anybody have a leap year birthday? All right. I would love that because I'd be 4 or 5 or whatever. But no, I think I did the math wrong on that. But anyway, so it's going to be Thursday, February 29th, 2024, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And we will get more details on that. And if you're interested in being a panelist, just send me an email asking for information like Mark did, and I'll make you a panelist in a day or two. But anyway, I want to thank our panelists seriously for all your insight and also your time. I know you guys are very busy. You did the dry run yesterday. You answered some questions earlier, and I just wanted to say how much I thank you. I want to thank all of our attendees. Again, we had a record attendance today, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Take care.
Thank you very much.
See ya.
You.